This video is going to be a film study look at Tre'Davious White, the veteran corner that the Ravens just acquired, I believe, in exchange for a 7th-round pick. So essentially, no risk for the Ravens. Very similar to the Deontay Johnson move. He's a 29-year-old outside corner with 18 career interceptions. Only played in 10 games total in 2022 and 2023 with the Bills as a result of significant injuries. Unfortunate at that point in time for him because he was so dynamic and athletic, able to impact games his first 4 seasons in the NFL. Truly a really rare talent at that point. The injuries have clearly provided a drop-off point in terms of his impact. The passes defense decreased every year. Interceptions certainly decreased every year. I have significant film of him from week 1 because the Rams came to Detroit and played the Lions and dropped a 26-20 game in overtime. So I will rely on some of that film here. Also grabbed about 6 or 8 coverage plays against the 49ers in week 3. Why? Well, because the Rams won the football game, number 1. Number 2, White played, I think, 91% of the snaps in that one. Jennings also went off, if you remember. I think he had 3 touchdowns in that game, and I wanted to see, okay, it sounds like a matchup that could have been against him from the standpoint of Ayuk is the number 1. White perhaps was matched up with Jennings, and in fact he was. In one case, I'll show you the film of that play. He's been inactive since week 4 for the Rams. Why? I don't know. Maybe the Rams have other guys they like better. Maybe they found out or it was confirmed that he was less athletic than they perceived. I will tell you my gut instinct for this for the Ravens is Marlon Humphrey insurance. I think he actually is somewhat similar to Marlon in a couple of ways. He's physical, grabby, and handsy, and you'll see that in the film here. He's willing to make contact with receivers within the 3 or 4 or 5 yards that generally occurs. He's also handsy at the top of routes at times. I don't know what his DPI or defensive holding numbers look like. I don't pretend to say that he's as high a quality a corner as Marlon at all, but in the style of play, that's what he reminds me of. Only 14 games played in the last 3 years, 2022, 2023, and now here about halfway through 2024, he's played in 4 games for the Rams. So even though he's 29 years old and certainly on the downslope in terms of his impact and athleticism, I think it's a low-risk move for the Ravens for this season and possibly next year. I don't know if, how, will a guy like Tre'Davious White with his injury history recover from that and regain athleticism that appears to be lost. That's a very rare pathway to being a quality NFL player. But I will remind you that when Ron Darby signed with the Ravens prior to the 2023 season in training camp, I believe, late, after Marlon's injury, in fact, that he was coming off of an ACL injury that had occurred, I believe, in week 5 or 6 of 2022. Used to be a supremely athletic corner, was a lot more savvy, intelligent, and aware. And there is some markers here with Tre'Davious White when I watch him in zone. Let's get to the film so you guys can see it for yourself. Let me know if you like the Humphrey analogy in terms of why he was acquired. I don't think he's acquired to play over Brandon Stevens. I don't think he's acquired to play over Nate Wiggins. I think he's acquired to be insurance in case Marlon Humphrey goes down. I can't vouch for how willing or physical or able he is to be a tackler overall. I just know that on this particular play, one of the first plays of overtime, like I said, of Detroit's 26-20 win, he's the guy who makes possibly a touchdown-saving tackle here against David Montgomery, who really had an incredible head of steam, not just on that play, but on multiple plays in that overtime as the Lions were able to come back and win. In terms of coverage in that game, at the time, if you were to ask me my initial impression, I would say he certainly appeared less athletic than the guy that I remember playing for the Bills, specifically when we went up to Buffalo and played them in the 2020 playoffs in the divisional round. I think his best matchup would be against tight ends or slot receivers who aren't going to overwhelm him in terms of speed. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of my favorite players in the NFL, and he's very shifty and savvy. I think he's one of the top 10 players in the league overall because of his impact. Look, he's got 30 catches in a row in 2024, meaning the last 30 targets, he's got 30 catches. That's insanity. But having said that, when Tre'Davious White guarded him in this game, it was a matchup that didn't overwhelm him athletically. That would be my concern. Guys like Jameson Williams, the supremely athletic wide receivers, I worry about just the speed profile or comparison. Against some of these tight ends on the backside, you find some better snaps This is a 3rd and 7. Ends up being incomplete to Laporta. Look, there's multiple guys in the window here that are helping Tre'Davious White out. And in fact, I think at the top of the route, he kind of loses connection with Laporta. That's some of the routes that I feel like I see better reps or better snaps out of him. Against St. Brown, the matchup that I kind of talked about a moment ago, this is going to be Jameson Williams on an over route from the other side of the field. And I also do wonder if this is not a design element for St. Brown to kind of try to screen or pick the defender that was responsible for Jameson Williams. But when you do see better corner play, when you do see better coverage from Tre'Davious White, it's normally when he's able to get his hands on the receiver and kind of stay on a leverage side with them. Again, from a style of play standpoint, he reminds me of Marlon Humphrey in some ways. I don't pretend to say that he's going to give us anywhere near that quality of play or that consistency, but in terms of the way that he plays the game of football as an outside corner, I will compare him to Marlon. This is a 3rd and 3. That's a touchdown to Jameson Williams, who initially was lined up on the line, able to back off. It's a stutter go. So he's stuttering here to make Tre'Davious White think that, maybe it's going to be a deep out, maybe it's going to be a comeback, because again, it's a 3rd and 3. So the Lions, might be just trying to get the sticks, get the first down, and retain possession of the ball. Nope, it's a stutter go, and Jameson Williams is out. Tre'Davious White tries to interfere. He's unable to do so. Clearly a really poor loss. Again, that's the matchups that I would be concerned about as a Ravens fan. Putting him in those situations, to me, we would be far less athletic with him on the field compared to Brandon Stevens, Nate Wiggins, or even Marlon Humphrey out there on the edge on deeper routes against speedsters like Jameson Williams. I think he's pretty savvy, and I think he communicates well. I'm not sure what our defense is going to look like the rest of 2024. Are we going to play more zone? I think it's possible. And his zone reactions, his understanding of the game, I think is pretty solid. That's a strength, I think, at this point for him. This is a little underneath drag. It's a cheat, really a cheat code, running a guy like Jameson Williams across here. And he's released him. This is Tre'Davious White. I'll pull it back so you can see it again. He's released him, and now he's looking for work from the other side of the field. And that's letting this safety work over the top, look for that guy. So I think he could be helpful in match coverages, in zone relationships. The comparison to Darby is probably a good one. I thought Darby last year was more zone heavy in our defense, playing off that left side with Brandon Stevens over on the right. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I'm certainly not saying that he's going to play as well as Darby did for us in 2023, nor as well as Marlon is playing right now and has throughout his career, but that's the markers that I see in terms of style of play. So this is against Ayuk. I think we've got 3 matchups against him here from week 3 against the 49ers. Deep curl on a 3-deep, 3-under route. And look, Brock Purdy takes some shots in this game. And here's 2 of them right here. They damn near high-low him. But it's a nice completion. Ayuk comes back to the ball. You can see there's a lot of separation there. For those supremely athletic receivers, I think that it's going to be a difficult matchup for him in terms of worrying about getting beat deep. And when they push off on a vertical stem, not push off with their hands, but get to a vertical release, a vertical stem, it's going to be hard for him to keep up with it, in my opinion. Moving forward in the 49ers game, really poor rep down here. It's a fake toss play. He's at the bottom. You might lose him once the play gets started. My apologies. I think it's man here, and the tell for me is this strong safety rolling down into the boundary. It's a fake toss to the running back. Tre'Davious White has got all eyes in here in the backfield. I don't see anything that tells me that this is zone and he's releasing that to a safety at all. What I see is a guy who, after the fake block by Jennings, thinks that it's run. So now he's picking up motion, or he's trying to look into the backfield and find the football. This is reminiscent of 2 plays in Marlon Humphrey's career, one of which was against the Raiders this year. If you recall, Devontae Adams scores 1st and goal from the 1. I mean, they're probably going to score anyway at that point. But in terms of averting his eyes and anything that looks like a block, he's reading his key, so he's released Jennings. He thinks it's run. It's not. The free safety also goes with Brock Purdy's eyes to the top side where I think Ayuk is located. Also, that's exactly where Brock Purdy is looking. There's time in the pocket, comes back, Jennings wide open. Oh, by the way, he had 3 touchdowns in that game. Like I said, that one to me is a miscoverage by Tre'Davious White. Up here, kind of physical with, I think it's number 18. I'm not sure exactly who that receiver is. Look, in this game against the 49ers, when you looked up the game flow chart, I mean, damn near every completion was to Jennings. This one's for 34. I don't even know what his total yardage output was for the game. It had to have been upwards of close to 200 or maybe even above. But this, to me, is Marlon Humphrey light-esque type of coverage. I've talked about it on my channel earlier in 2024 when we were struggling mightily in coverage relationship. Marlon was one of the only guys playing physical with receivers at all. And I kind of see the same thing out of Tre'Davious White. To me, if he's in man and he doesn't get hands-on and disrupt someone, and it's an athletic wide receiver, they're all athletic in the NFL. I mean, for the NFL level, someone with truly elite speed, I think we should avoid those types of matchups as much as we can if he's on the field. You got a little bit of his body up here just inside of the frame. He's going to get motion that returns to him. Ends up being Jennings on a touchdown. Brock Purdy escapes out of here. Jennings is bringing this back. The referee throws his hat on the ground because the other receiver is out of bounds, Ayuk, unrelated to Tre'Davious White. Do I think that they moved him off of Jennings? No, I think he's generally playing to the boundary. Again, this kind of reminds me of Darby in some ways in that you can play him to the boundary and possibly play a little bit more zone over there. Does have really good ball skills from 18 career interceptions. You know, I understand that we were all hoping for a bigger trade, something that will make a little bit more noise, and this one certainly doesn't fit the bill there. Again, against the tight ends on the backside, seems to me to be able to match those types of routes, that match that body size a little bit better. Don't pretend that like he's going to be like a Travis Kelce, a killer or anything like that. Some of the bigger, more athletic tight ends we deal with are pretty much going to give everyone trouble. But when he has looked better in coverage, it's been against those tight ends, particularly into the boundary. In my opinion, this is a low-risk move, not designed to be high impact for the Ravens this year, in my opinion. Now, he does have a couple of good reps that I can't discount. And one of them is against Ayuk. And he had 2 in the Lions game that I actually didn't show you, so my apologies for that. This is down here on the bottom side. He's a competitor, and again, I think there is some Marlon Humphrey characteristics here. I think this one goes down as a pass defense. Brock Purdy is moving outside of the pocket again to the right, and here's Ayuk and Tre'Davious White battling. Ball is put a little bit behind Ayuk, if you ask me, and Tre'Davious White is able to get in there and strip it. I would love to see a guy like this come to Baltimore, get healthy, return to something close or some reasonable facsimile of the type of ball production and big play ability that he had early in his career with the Buffalo Bills, because I like people. I like athletes, and I like to see them resurrect their career and kind of return to their former level. If you were to ask me, hey, Coach, do you think that's going to happen? Of course my answer is no. You can already tell from me talking about the film and leading up to it. I think it's a low-risk move that provides depth for us at the trade deadline. Only had to forfeit a 7th-round pick, I believe, if I have my information correct, for 2025. You may or may not agree with my assertion as to why we picked him up. Well, we're getting nothing out of TJ Tampa. What can we rely on as far as JAD at this point? We needed a 4th outside corner, and to me, for the amount that we were willing to give up, this makes sense. While that may not excite us, and we certainly would like to have upgraded the talent more significantly than a 29-year-old corner who's only played in 14 football games combined in the last 3 years, I understand why when there's value out there, you've got to buy low, even if it's someone who you may not get an immediate return on right now. I don't know what his contract looks like. My suspicion is that it's got to be low value because he was coming off of injuries when he signed with the Rams anyway. In my opinion, it's still a good move, even though it possibly doesn't impact us. Hopefully it doesn't impact, because to me, the only way he really gets on the field at this point is if Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, or Nate Wiggins gets hurt. You guys will have to let me know what you think of the plays that I picked to illustrate his abilities right now. I wish I could go back and show plays from previous seasons, but I don't think that would have given an accurate representation of the guy that we've seen on the field in limited, small sample size, I should say, in 2024. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study video of Tre'Davious White, the newest Raven that was acquired from the Los Angeles Rams, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.